It's only a kick, a jump, a block. It's only a serve. It's only a tackle, a run. It's only for the fans. After all, it's only pressure. You got this. Adidas.
Everybody's got a story. Everybody has a book inside of them that they just want to be able to share the stories with different people. And I never learned anything by talking. I only learned by listening. So I enjoy people, but I also understand that everybody has problems. Everybody has difficulties. Everybody needs a kind word, and everybody needs a smile. Everybody needs encouragement.
I'm excited to introduce a new series today that we have running with a partner, Global Football, and to tell the story of how I met our host of this series, I was at Playbook Clinics this past February in Pittsburgh, and next to where I was set up with a podcast was Global Football, and it looked like a pretty interesting booth. I was going back and forth and finally had the opportunity to meet the gentleman who was at that booth, and turns out he's the CEO and founder of Global Football, Patrick Steenberge. And the first thing he did is he shook my hand, and I had a coin, a challenge coin in my hand, and on it had the word Kileleni and a picture of a mountain. And I asked, well, what is this? And he told me exactly what it meant, a Swahili word, and we're going to get into that with him as we get going with this podcast. But I thought, what a great vision that this gentleman had in putting together this company that allows teams to travel around the world and have experiences with this great vehicle of a game that we call football. So this is going to be a really good series here. Full disclosure, this is a series he put out on his own during the pandemic and did 29 episodes. We picked out the episodes with the coaches and some very impactful stuff here. I think stuff that, even though it was put together during the pandemic, is as relevant today, even more relevant, because we continue to have challenges in our world, in our game, adversity like we always have. And I think that's what is at the heart of this is, as you'll hear from the host, what exactly is Kileleni? So I'll bring him in right now. Patrick Steenberge, who's the CEO and founder of Global Football. Patrick, great to have you here on the podcast and hosting this series for us.
Keith, it's a pleasure, man. It was great that we got to meet in Pittsburgh a couple of months ago. And, you and I were kind of next to each other. We were both busy meeting other people. And then eventually we got to meet and talk a little bit. And it was like, oh, yeah, I should know you and you should know me. And let's talk and figure some things out. So I appreciate you having me on this and being able to share some stories with coaches all around the world.
Let's cut right to what I mentioned before, the challenge coin. You reached out and shook my hand and gave me that challenge coin, and I looked at it, and on it said Kileleni, and I said, well, what is this? And go ahead and tell our guest exactly what that means.
Yeah, Kileleni is a Swahili word, which is the language of Eastern Africa, and it means to the summit. When I was preparing for the first American football game in Africa, the Global Kilimanjaro Bowl in 2011, which featured Drake University and a Mexican all-star team, I was over there in 2010 working on logistics, scouting all the details we needed for this 16-day adventure that was to come in May 2011. And I was talking to our guide, our coordinator, a guy who was grown up on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, Frank Mella. And I'm like, Frank, I need a motto for this. I need a mantra. I've been around sports my whole life, and I always had goals. I always had things on the whiteboard. The coaches put things up for us, I need that in my life. I said, what does it mean to set a goal, to go after something, to try to achieve something, to reach a summit, just like we're going to do when we climb Mount Kilimanjaro, when we play this first game, when we do service. And he thought for a minute. He said, that's pretty simple. He goes, it's a Swahili word, Kileleni. And I'm like, and he spelled it out for me. And I went, well, that's just like Spanish. It's pronounced the same way, the vowels. I speak Spanish. So Kileleni became our mantra, became our go-to piece. And a couple of years later, I was around my son who's in the military and some other military people who started sharing challenge coins with me. And a lot of people understand what they are. And I said, well, that's pretty cool. Maybe I should put the Kileleni onto a challenge coin. And so that's what I do. I order a few dozen every month and kind of give those to people that I meet that I feel might understand that message a little bit. And you were one of those guys. And I give them to my clients when we travel. It's kind of my simple little award. And it's the challenge coin. And what I do with that, I set it on my nightstand every night when I go to bed. And in the morning, that's the first thing that goes in my pocket. Because there's some days when I don't feel like going after it, right? We all have those days where we know we've got to lead some people. We know we've got to do our job, but we don't have that energy some days. And I put that coin in my pocket and it just fires me up. So that's the Kileleni message.
Patrick, tell us about the mission behind global football. I think I've, over the years, come to know a lot of guys. Division III global football is big with Division III guys. It used to be that our way to get more out of what used to be just shorts and T-shirts was if you took your team somewhere, the NCAA would give you a little waiver and you could actually get the equipment on because you were playing a game. And so, yeah, that's the impetus there. But it's an incredible experience, too, that you create. Life-changing experiences where you see people who are different than you. You serve people. I mean, just numerous ways this happens for you and the teams that you bring together. So talk to us about the vision behind it and how all this came about.
Sure, Keith. I was like most guys playing college football long ago. You dreamed of playing in the league, right? But not that many got there. But at Notre Dame, there were some. And I had that dream, had that vision, had worked my way up to being the starting quarterback my junior year, got injured after 3 games, being ranked number 1 and undefeated, and came back my senior year ready to go. And in practice, we were going goal line live, and a safety separated my shoulder and ended my football playing career. And so I got out of football. I really, I was despondent. I was frustrated. I was like, God, why have you done this to me? But was totally out of football for really about 20 years. But as I, got into being 40 years old, had 3 kids, I was raised like, what do I really want to do? I was, I had some good work in marketing, communications, in the horse industry and things, but I wanted to do something more meaningful and with football. So I created this global football idea. The mission statement was very simple: to unite the youth of the world through American football. Just something small, right?
Right.
But it was that little simple idea, and it was combining international travel, which to me is the best teacher in the world, education, and football, combining those 3 elements that I am passionate about in life. In 1996, I took Mount St. Joe High School to London on the first trip, and then I found the Division III rule that you talked about, so we started. John Carroll was the first Division III college that went with me, and have gone 7 times since. And it just kind of kept rolling along, looking for ideas, looking for projects, partnered with the NFL, did 11 Super Bowl events, partnered with the league in Mexico, and it did 20 all-star games with Division III seniors down in Mexico, partnered with the Japanese on a couple projects, and have just, it really is a mission of education through life experiences on a global basis. It's not about promoting football. And people ask me about this. Yeah, I guess we are promoting football globally and have done that kind of before the NFL got into it very seriously, which now they're doing a much better job of seeing their mission statement there. But my goal was to take student athletes, travel as a team, which is awesome because I believe in the value of team in everything, and have those experiences they can share, learn, teach a little bit about the game with people, learn about other cultures, learn about themselves, and then come back just a more worldly person, a more global, sensitive young man or woman. And it's been a blast. We've now been we've been to 28 different countries on 6 continents with 252 football games we've produced. 462 total teams have been involved. So it's and I feel like I'm just getting started. It's a great moment in life because now we can travel again around the world and do it with inquisitive young men who want to learn, with some of their families, and really with coaches who are visionary, who understand the broader vision of a student athlete.
For our coaches out there who'd be interested in learning more and even getting the process started to get their team set up in the future, what's the best way for them to learn more about global football?
We keep it pretty simple. Give me a call. I've got a website, globalfootball.com. My phone number is everywhere on there. It's patrick@globalfootball.com. That's probably the simplest way. We do have an Instagram, which is @globalfootballguy, and I'm using that more often. So just reach out. I just got a call yesterday from a Division III coach who had taken over a pretty good program, taking them to a whole other level. And when I had talked to former coaches there, and it just had never happened. And he called me and said, I want to go next year. I want to take my team. I see what's happening. I've got a buddy at Muhlenberg. I know the guys at North Central. I know the John Carroll people had success. How do we do this? And within 24 hours, we've shared information, and we're working out the details to take him overseas next spring.
And one of our partners who just came on board, a tremendous company in helping teams raise funds. Yes, this can be expensive, well worth the price, but Vertical Raise is able to help your teams out. And I know they're doing a good job of raising funds well beyond traditional means with their digital platform. So this is, don't think that, boy, this is all going to be left up to you. There's some tools, there's some partners with Vertical Raise that can help you get your team to where you want to go and have an incredible experience. So I'll put some links in the show notes as well in the description. And it's pretty simple. As he said, Patrick@globalfootball. What you see on tape is a direct reflection of what you teach and how you teach. Video is important, but if you don't teach well, you're not going to like what you see on your video. First Down Playbook has been helping coaches teach better for 13 years. It allows you to present installs, playbooks, and practice cards in half the time with NFL quality. Coaching tools like video pairing, a player app, practice schedules, and wristband sheets have made First Down Playbook a program management system with everything in one place. If you're in a position of leadership with your football program, receive a free 1-week look at First Down Playbook. Call them at 512-814-6158 or visit them on their website or social media. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code COACH24 to receive a $100 discount off the normal $700 First Down Playbook team membership price. Links and the phone number are in the show notes. The other thing that came out of the conversation, when we started talking about podcasts, you said, yeah, I did a podcast for a little while, and you pointed me that direction, and on the way home from Pittsburgh, I was listening to it, and that's where this idea for sharing those podcasts here with our audience came about. And I really loved the first episode I saw was Lou Holtz. I clicked on that. For me, Lou Holtz, and I don't think I've ever told this story on the podcast, but I read his book. I think it was around 1993. I was 23 years old. I read his book, The Fighting Spirit, which was about their national championship season at Notre Dame. And it really was my inspiration. I had been, coaching some youth football, coaching some middle school football, but it was my inspiration to do more as a coach. And, I had graduated just the year before with a business degree and decided I'm going to go back and get my master's in education. I want to get into education and coaching. And really that book was an inspiration for it. I hadn't read a book in a long time. I mean, you read so much in college and textbooks that you don't read for pleasure. But for whatever reason, I picked that book up for a vacation. And I poured through it. Probably hadn't read that many pages that quickly in a long, long time. And as I said, it inspired me to become a coach. And Lou Holtz has always been somebody, I've read all of his stuff. I've always just enjoyed listening to him. So though I've not had Coach Holtz on myself, I think it's a thrill that we're able to put him on the podcast through the podcast that you did with him. Would love to hear about your relationship with Coach Holtz. I know you had spent a lot of time with him and got to know him, being a Notre Dame grad yourself.
Yeah, I had the honor of playing for Coach Ara Parsegian many years ago. I've stayed in touch with things at the university over the years. In fact, I created a football fantasy camp in 2003, which we ran for 11 years there. And but along the way there, I have a very good friend in Japan, a guy named Shinzo Yamada, who reached the highest levels of the NFL Europe for any Japanese player. He was a starting linebacker in Amsterdam for the Amsterdam Admirals for many years. And he's done a lot of events with me in Japan or in other parts of the world where he's brought Japanese teams. And he and I were talking one day in 2008, and he said, look, I'd love to bring Notre Dame to play in Japan. They did that in 1987, I believe it was, when Coach Holtz was coaching at Notre Dame. He said, could you do that again? And I said, well, it could happen, Shinzo, but it's going to take a lot of money, a lot of time. I said, that's a massive project, and I'm not sure, unless you've got, tens of millions of dollars to throw at that. And I came up with the idea anyways of taking a Legends team, getting former players to go to Japan to play against the Japanese national team, and to make it very special. Besides having guys like Tony Rice playing quarterback, some really good players that had played. I got Lou Holtz to serve as the head coach. And from that, we got to know one another quite well. I traveled over there in February with him to do kind of a PR trip, and we visited military bases, the U.S. consulate, had a big dinner there with the Notre Dame Alumni Club of Tokyo, and I got to know him quite well through that. And then in July, we went back for a 9-day trip to Japan with 48 former Notre Dame football players dressed in gold helmets and blue jerseys and gold pants. And we were playing football against some really good Japanese. So I worked with him throughout those 9 days and got to appreciate, a lot of things about him as a coach and as a man. So it was really a treat when I was working my own podcast. I said, let me call Lou and just see if he might want to jump on here. And anybody who's ever watched him or listened to him, understand that he's one of the most entertaining speakers I've ever seen in various ways. So I was thrilled to have him and kind of get his thoughts about coaching, about football, about life, which he shares with us on the podcast.
Patrick and I will be back after the interview with Coach Holtz to bring you our winning edge takeaways. So here's Patrick's conversation with Coach Lou Holtz on maximizing potential. As coaches, we know that some of the biggest hurdles to our team's success can come from off the field. Your team needs support to tackle the endless list of expenses, uniforms, training equipment, travel, and more. But raising that money can feel like a full-time job. Thankfully, there's Vertical Raise. Vertical Raise is the premier online fundraising platform using innovative technology to create the easiest and most efficient system available. Raise more money in less time with a local fundraising coach who works with your team every step of the way to customize the ideal fundraiser. With options for online donations, digital discount cards, premium product sales, and even spirit shops, Vertical Raise has top-of-the-line solutions for every fundraising style. To find out more, visit verticalraise.com and we'll get you connected with an exclusive offer on your first fundraiser.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Welcome, friends. This is Patrick Steenberge, founder and president of Global Football, and your host for the podcast. Today I'm visiting with legendary coach and broadcaster Lou Holtz. Coach, where do I find you today?
Well, I happen to be quarantined like everybody else in the country. Have been for the last 5 weeks, and it gets a little frustrating.
I totally get it. We're all going through those moments. This is when we have to go back and think of all the good things we've told some of our other people, right? Yeah, I want to visit a little bit, kind of back on some of your younger days before you became a famous coach, broadcaster, speaker, and all those. I know you grew up in East Liverpool, Ohio. Got to visit there. My former teammate Jimmy Mazurka was from there. But how about a mentor or somebody that helped you, guide you when you were growing up on the streets of Liverpool?
Well, the one person who was really the most influential in my life was my uncle, Louis Tykonovich. I was born in Fallsby, West Virginia during the Depression. My father had a third-grade education, and when he went in the Navy in World War II to serve in the Pacific, we moved to East Liverpool, Ohio to live with my mother's parents while my father was in the service. At that time, my Uncle Lou was a junior in high school, a football player. He was 10 years older than me, and he just sort of adopted me at that time. You know, he was like 16. I was like 6 years of age. He'd take me down on the corner. He was a football star. Then he went in the Navy, and after the war ended, he came out. And at that time, if you're in the service, the government had a 52-20 program, which meant for 52 weeks, you got $20 as long as you applied for 2 jobs. Well, he was a high school graduate. He would go apply for the President Crucible Steel, which obviously he would never get. He'd apply for the elevator operator in the little building, and they didn't even have an elevator because they didn't want to work. My grandpa got mad because he was living off the government, so he came to live with us for about 2 years. But he became the most influential person in my life. I went to him over everything. He was my hero. He loved football. And as a matter of fact, there were 2 girls that I was dating, and he approved Beth, and that had a strong influence in who I eventually married. And this summer, Beth and I will be married for 59 years, but I never made a major decision that I didn't check with my Uncle Lou. The only thing, I'm so glad that my mother, when she got married, assumed my father's name rather than her maiden name, which was Tykonovich, Tychonievich, 13 letters. Every time I signed an autograph, I think, oh, Lord, am I glad it's Holtz.
Yeah, Holtz was much simpler, far simpler. Hey, from there, you went on to Kent State. And, you know, I knew you had gone there and had read stuff, but I didn't realize you were a linebacker. Talk about overcoming that adversity at your size, Lou.
Well, how I ended up in college, I wasn't a good student, but my high school coach told me parents I should go to college and be a coach. Well, I had no desire to go, and I'd save money to buy a 49 Chevrolet. They maybe use that money to go to Kent State. And if I was going to be a coach, then I needed to go out and play college football. Well, at that time, there was one platoon system. In high school, I was an outside linebacker, so I was a linebacker in college. Now, I was only like 152 pounds, maybe 155. But at that time, a guard was 185 pounds. It wasn't 270 and 280 like it is now. So really, it would be similar to a linebacker at the present day, playing at 195 pounds. But I wasn't a great player, but I learned a great deal. I had great respect for my teammates, and my main concern was that they respected me, not for my ability, but there are a lot of things in this world that don't take talent, Pat. You don't need to have talent to be positive, to encourage your teammates, to know your assignments, to play hard, to be unselfish. And so that's all I tried to do. And then when I got out of college, I went in the Army. Not many people know I was in ROTC, and I was a military officer. But those days, it was after the Korean War and before the Vietnam War, so I did not see any active service in that per se. But when I got out, I was going to get married and go teach at Conneaut High School under a guy named Earl Biederman. And unbeknownst to me, that my college coach was in the Navy with a guy named Forrest Devashevsky, at that time was the head coach at Iowa. And he worked it out that I got a graduate assistantship at Iowa University. And I went to Iowa, and we finished second in the country. And that's how I ended up in college coaching rather than high school coaching. If I'd done it the other way, I'd probably still be at Conneaut High School teaching history and being an assistant football coach. So, and my high school coach, who recommended I go to college and be a coach, told my wife, he did not tell me this. He said, when I said Lou should go to college and be a coach, I meant high school. I didn't mean Notre Dame. So maybe I
Yeah.
passed his expectations.
So when you started coaching as a young guy, just out of Kent State, and you're at Iowa, helping with a great staff and a great season, did you set goals at that time? Said, "Hey, I'm going to win a national championship. I'm going to take 6 different colleges to bowl games." Did you have that mentality?
No. We finished second in we had a great staff there. I learned a great deal about football, but I had no real ambition. Last game that year, Pat, we played Notre Dame. Now this is 1960. We beat them 28-0. I was on the sideline as a visiting coach, and I thought that was the highlight of my life. To be on the sideline at Notre Dame, even though it's a lowly graduate assistant, I thought, man, this is the opinion. I can't do anything in coaching. It would give me a greater thrill than to be on the Notre Dame sideline where Newt Rockney, Frank Leahy, all those great coaches were. And so I never had many goals or anything else in life, but I do believe goals are exceptionally important. I learned that later on. When I was in the first grade, I think Sister Mary Baptista, asking everybody what they wanted to be. I want to be a fireman, a lawyer, a doctor. I wanted to be a garbage collector. And she said, well, that's weird. But I said, but they only work on Tuesdays. I thought that would be a great deal. So that was just my mentality at that time. Because let's remember, nobody from our family had ever gone to college, let alone graduate. As I mentioned, my father had a 3rd grade education, never had any hopes or expectations other than work in a mill and get married and play in the softball league, so to speak.
So how did you just progress? I know you coached in a lot of places, William and Mary and Minnesota, and ended up in South Carolina. How did that progression go from just being a young guy on the sideline to achieving some of those goals that every coach would love to have?
Well, what really changed everything for me was I went to South Carolina under a guy by the name of Marvin Bass. My wife was 8 months pregnant with her 3rd child. We spent every cent we had in the bank for down payment on home. And I'm there 1 month. And I pick up the paper, and I'll never forget. The headline of the paper reads, Marvin Bass resigns. And I said to my wife, I wonder if he's related to my coach. I had no idea. He resigned to go coach in the Canadian League. They hired Paul Diesel. I didn't know Paul Diesel. He came down from West Point. I'd only been in South Carolina a month, so I didn't know many people there. So I was not retained. I was out of a job. And after my wife gave birth to Kevin, she went to work as an X-ray technician, which was her chosen field. I was a stay-at-home dad, feeling very defeated. One afternoon, with the children taking a nap, she got me this book, a paperback book, titled The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. And I got out the book, and he talked about goals, and I never had any. Made 5 categories. Things I want to do as a husband and a father. The best advice I ever got as a father is make sure that child always knows how much I love their mother. Things I want to accomplish religiously. God's very important in my life, but I don't preach it. I don't lecture it. But I hope the way I live my life reflects the faith I have in God. And then column number 3, things I want to accomplish financially. Things I want to do professionally. Coach at Notre Dame, be a head coach, win the national championship, go in the Hall of Fame, and stuff. The last thing, it was just things you'd like to do, just to experience it, like jump out of an airplane, land on an aircraft carrier, go in a submarine, be on the Tonight Show, Johnny Carson, go whitewater raft on the Snake River, make a hole one, play the greatest golf course in the world, go to the White House for dinner, visit with the Pope, wanted to go to Pamplona and run with the bulls with a slower person. But that from those, whether it was 107, and I showed it to my wife, and she had to get a job because I was unemployed at that time. So out of 108, Pat, my wife and I have accomplished 102 of them. And life is nothing more than having goals of what you want to do, things you want to accomplish. And to the audience, I would say this is a big question. Are you growing or are you dying? A tree can grow and die, and so's grass, and so's a person. Doesn't have anything to do with age, has everything to do. Am I trying to accomplish something in life, or am I trying to maintain? And when I left Notre Dame, I never thought I'd coach again. I thought I was really tired of coaching. Well, it turned out I wasn't tired of coaching. us trying to maintain it. And Notre Dame, as you know, we took a program that was in rather dire straits. We took it to the very top. For 9 straight years, we went to a January 1 bowl, the sugar, the cut, the orange, or the fifth, and nobody's done it before or since. And we finished second in the country, and everybody called me an idiot. And you get to the point, no matter what you do, it's not good enough. We're just, listen, we got a good life here. We're on top each year. We're competing for the national. Let's maintain it. And anytime you maintain anything in your life, you're really dying. And so that is why I ended up going back into coaching. But when I left Notre Dame, I never thought I would coach again. But I say this. Goals are exceptionally important. And if you don't, everybody needs 4 things in your life: something to do, someone to love, someone to believe in, but something to hope for. And if you don't have goals, you don't have dreams, you don't have ambition, you have no purpose. You have nothing to excite you, no reason to get up in the morning, no reason to accomplish things. And that's one of the problems I have at the present time with the quarantine at my age, that right now, our only goal is to keep my wife healthy as possibly as we can. She has some serious health issues at the present time. But goals are exceptionally important. And if you don't have them, you're dying.
That makes a lot of sense. Hey, you coached a lot of different teams, a lot of different levels of players, of ability and things, including your 1988 national championship team. But tell me about a team maybe that you look back on and are particularly proud of, that they overachieved. They played beyond, their physical abilities because they were a team.
Well, the first team that comes to my mind is the Notre Dame alumni team we took to Japan. And
I was wondering.
The All-Star team, and I didn't have a quarterback. I had one quarterback, and he got hurt. Had to take a receiver, but it was a great experience. But I don't believe any team overachieves. Some teams don't reach their true potential, but you cannot overachieve. It's like, I've never believed in, well, I'm going to give 110%. You do the very best you can, the max you possibly can. But there are certain players that I think achieve great things. And the one guy who does not get near enough credit for the caliber of quarterback he was Kevin McDougal. Kevin McDougal came to us out of Florida. He's a nice young man, good golfer. His father would call me once a month, want to know how his son was doing. And I never had parents call me and want to know how his son was doing. And I said, well, he's doing fine. He's doing well in school and he's behaving himself. He said, that's all I need to know. I'm not talking about academic. I just want to make sure that he's being a good citizen, et cetera. Well, he was behind Rick Meyer for 3 years. And we'd recruited a quarterback by the name of Ron Pallas. And I thought during early camp, Ron Pallas showed tremendous potential. And even though Kevin McDougal looked like he was the heir apparent, it became obvious to me that Ron Pallas would be our starting quarterback. Well, in the last scrimmage before our first game, Ron Pallas dislocated his collarbone, and I had to go with Kevin McDougal. Well, Kevin McDougal and that football team didn't look that great on paper, but they went 11-1. Lost the only game they lost was by 1 point. And Kevin McDougal became the all-time passing percentage quarterback. And he just was a winner. He just got things done. He accomplished it. But there are an awful lot of athletes. And when they talk about Rudy, and sure, that was a great story by Rudy, but I had all kind of walk-ons who now are doctors and dentists and presidents of corporations, et cetera. Because the same things, I never felt like coach football. I felt like coach life. The same things that made you a good football player would make you a good husband, et cetera. And that was just by learning how to make good choices. If everybody listening to your show today will just make good choices, wherever you are, good or bad, it's going to be because of choices you make. And you choose to do drugs, drop out of school, join a gang, get tattoos, get arrested. You're choosing to have difficulty in life, and please stop blaming me for the choices you make. And the way you always made good choices, we had 3 rules. Do the right thing. You do the right thing, you're going to build a trust with people. Do everything best to your ability so that they know you're committed to excellence, and always reach out and show people how you care. Those 3 rules, I felt, would enable you to succeed regardless of what you do. So, yeah, we've been fortunate. I go back and I look at a little school like William Mary, my second year there. Uh, we did some great things, but we'd lose to North Carolina by 1 point on a 2 point conversion late in the game and stuff. But I just, each and every football team is completely different. All you try to do is get everybody to play to the maximum of their potential. Not everybody can be All-American, not everybody can be all conference, not everybody can be first team. Everybody can be the best they're capable of being. That's all I ask out of them.
Yeah, if everybody could just do that every day. When it's funny you mentioned that Japan, and I wanted to touch on it because that's when you and I got to know each other. We had set up with a friend of mine, Shinzo Yamada, who says hello, by the way. We set up a game, Notre Dame legends, former players, some too old to be out there, and you obliged to coach this team. The average age, I think, was about 37. And we went over to Tokyo, Japan, and played against their national team. I know that wasn't on your list of, boy, this is what I got to do, but tell me a little bit about that experience with those grown men at the time.
It was one of the more memorable experiences. And Father Portman, who's now president, I think, at Portland University, would accompany us on that trip. And he and I laughed about it all the time. He said that was one of the most fun games and fun trips he'd ever had. First of all, I want to compliment you because it was a first-class environment. When we consented to go over there and put the team together, I had no idea what kind of combinations or how it would be, but it was a first-class environment. Every year, as long as my wife was healthy, we would try to take one grandchild on a foreign trip, just us and the child. And we took Chad, Skip's son, who just graduated from Notre Dame, and he went with us, and he was like 14 at the time. It's just a tremendous experience, but that was a very good football team. I want to tell you, they started football when General MacArthur was the leader of Japan in 1945. And so this was like the 75th anniversary. They were a very good football team, very great accommodations. They played well. They threw the ball very well, but we were just one step ahead of them as far as pass coverages. We did some things that they weren't really prepared for, but they were wonderful people, and it was just a tremendous experience. It's the last game I've really coached, and so it brings up a great memory. But I know, Pat, you've taken so many teams abroad and done so much to promote football on an international level, and I want to compliment you on the success you've had and the way you do things. I promise you, we never at Notre Dame traveled any more first class than we did when we went to Japan.
Well, thank you, Coach. It was a real honor to be with you. And, the guys that were on that, Tim Brown is our wide receiver coach. Reggie Brooks is the running back coach. Gary Darnell is your defensive coordinator. And all of these guys have gotten to be, friends of mine. Do you remember, and you've done a lot of things, but in February, that game was in July in the heat, but in February, you and I traveled over to Tokyo on kind of a public relations blitz, which I remember very well. Remember that helicopter ride from the embassy out to the military base?
Absolutely, I do it. I also remember we went to that sing-along place. It was a wonderful experience, but I've been fortunate. I've ridden in helicopters before across Tokyo because not many people realize it, but I think 4 or 5 different times where we took an all-star team over to Japan to play. As a matter of fact, in 1987, actually it was 88, like January the 2nd, we had played Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. And the next morning, we got on the airplane along with Jackie Sherrill, who was coach of the West, I was coach of the East, and we flew to Japan. And so we had that same experience. The only difference, we went to the military post when we were there and did a lot of different things. But I love Japan. The people are absolutely fantastic. And we go down to the Ginza, the shopping center, and they got the pushers. And the pusher means they push people on the subway so the doors will close. And it just, I've been blessed in so many different ways to have so many wonderful experiences like that. It's great we can bring this up and talk about it because it brings back so many fond memories.
Oh, it does. And Coach, on that trip, and whenever I travel with somebody, I'm usually traveling with student athletes and they want me to tell them stuff that I've learned. And I try to learn from people I travel with, different perspectives and things. And during that, we did a pretty fast, like 3-day buzz around. And we were doing 3 or 4 events a day. You were talking to the military, you talked to media, you talked to sponsors, everywhere we went. And I just kind of was making sure you got in the right place and got to meet people. And I watched you for a few days. And I remember sitting in the airport, getting ready to come back. And I said, Coach, I'm really impressed the way you interact with people and the way you talk to folks and you bring them into your space. And you said something that stuck with me, ever since. And you said, Patrick, everybody just wants to feel important for 30 seconds or that 1 minute. They think I, Lou Holtz, am somebody important, so I want them to feel important. Well, that really has stuck with me forever,
that's
Coach.
True. When I meet people, I always say, before they can ask me a question, I'll say, tell me about you. And what I found, Pat, when you just say, tell me about you, everybody's got a story. Everybody has a book inside of them that they just want to be able to share the stories with different people. And I never learned anything by talking. I only learned by listening. So I enjoy people, but I also understand that everybody has problems. Everybody has difficulties. Everybody needs a kind word and everybody needs a smile. Everybody needs encouragement.
That is true. Hey, talk a little bit just about your passion, Coach. I mean, anybody who's seen you on TV, watched you coach, or been around you for a meal understands that you live with great passion. Where does that come from?
Well, I think passion is having a desire that whatever you're going to do, let's do it to the very best of your ability. And I learned a long time ago, if I have to do something that I don't really want to do, that people are going to have fun being around it. If you enjoy doing what you want to do, people want to be part of it. Every day I walked out on the football field, first thing I said was, boy, what a great day to work. And I meant that sincerely. It might be snowing, but if I'm happy to be there, then the player's going to say, well, this must be pretty good. I think passion is just putting all your efforts into one thing and stay focused on what you're doing. If I was coaching, I wasn't worried about recruiting at that time. I'm out on the field. When I'm recruiting, I'm not worried about on the field. When I did TV, when they turned the red light on, even though I may not want to be there, I was going to have fun doing something. Because if you have fun doing something, people want to be around you. And that's all passion is. But no matter what you're doing, no matter what chore you're having, you can find a reason to have fun. You can make a game out of it. You can do different things. When you have a drudgery, boy, I don't want to do this. Boy, I can't believe what a difficult way that is to go through life, doing things that you don't want to do. I don't want to go to work. Hey, have fun at work. Enjoy it. Look at the positive things. Yeah. How can I have fun? How can I interact with people and enjoy it? So it's not complicated. I don't know complicate life, Pat, because we really don't need to. There's only 7 Colors of the Rainbow, and look what Mike Winslow did with that. There's only 7 musical notes, and look what Beethoven did with that. So it doesn't have to be complicated, but just have fun with what you're doing. If there's any advice I give young people, life is too short to be drudge in everything you do. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do homework. Have fun with it. You can always find a way to have fun.
Boy, those are great comments, Coach, for anybody. And I think back, it's been 47 years or so, and I can picture right back to being in a team huddle with Coach Parsegan, and I can still hear the words, that he put into our minds, about having no breaking point, about the commitment to the team. And you obviously have given the same message of that. How about some young man or young lady who's an athlete and can't train today, who cannot go to their school? How about just a quick little message for them to get them fired up about today?
I'm fortunate that, there was a saying I used to have on my desk, my God, give me the courage to change the things I can, the serenity to accept the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. A lot of times you're placed in a situation not because of choices you made, but because of choices somebody else happened to make. And to be able to say, okay, you can't work out, you can't go to school. I have a granddaughter who's a straight A student, beautiful young lady. She had been accepted to Notre Dame as a freshman student next year. And I just feel sad because her entire senior spring semester, which is the best time of your life. You're going to graduate, you're going to Notre Dame, but all your friends and proms and graduation and everything else, and she can't experience any of that. So the only thing that you can do is say, okay, I can't do this. What can I do? Let's not look at what we can't do. Let's look at what we're capable of doing. And if you're an athlete, I know my son's the head coach at Louisiana Tech, and no spring practice, and yet they play Baylor next year, Vanderbilt, etc. But what he does with his staff every morning, because they're not allowed in the office, they have a Zoom staff meeting. They also visit with their athlete. I don't really know the answer, but I say this: let's not worry about what we can't do. Let's focus on what we can do, and let's get that done to the best of our ability. And once this all gets behind it, I'll be further ahead than my competition because I made the most use of this time that I possibly could.
All right. Thank you, Coach Lou Holtz. It's always a blessing to share time with you. And you be well, all right?
Do the same. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Yes, sir.
What an incredible conversation. I enjoyed that one so much. I got to tell you, I listened to it multiple times before we even had it on the podcast. Lou Holtz to me was always that guy who inspired me to do more in coaching. And I think there's a ton of takeaways, but what were three that you focused on here, and looking back at that conversation that you think are very valuable for anybody out there?
Lou has done so many things at so many levels and been so successful. He's one of the most entertaining TV commentators I've ever heard when he was on ESPN there. But he talks a lot about embracing mentorship, the importance of having mentors, and for coaches to realize that they are mentors, but that they can also reach out to others for guidance. It's also, he stresses the idea of setting meaningful goals. And we all talk about that. Anybody in athletics talks about motivation and how to get there. But you got to set something that's more, maybe bigger than just winning this football game. Maybe it has something to do with your personal life. When we traveled to Japan, I mentioned about, he was talking to these guys who were average age was about 40, 42 years old on that trip of the Notre Dame Legends. And he would talk to them just like he did when they were 20 years old. And he said, guys, you're in Tokyo. You're adults. You're free to do what you want. Just do the right thing. He said, it's really simple in life. Just do the right thing. Coach talks about that. And then he also talked about cultivating passion and positivity. There's such contagious traits that foster the team culture, which is where great things are done with a team. So it gave me a lot of passion in my life just to be around Lou for 9 days in Tokyo with all these other young men who are successful in all their walks of life. So Coach has lots of good things to say.
Patrick, a great kickoff to this series. It's something I'm looking forward to. We've got another great one for you next week with Chris Creighton, and we'll be back on Kileleni to the Summit next week. Be sure to check out our partner Global Football at globalfootball.com. And for your fundraising needs, check out Vertical Raise at verticalraise.com, an innovative platform which we'll be sharing more about here on the podcast. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.